Newcastle's first summer signing may be only a few days away. It's clear they want to get a centre-back with Kim Min-jae and Marc Guehi, both heavily linked in the last few weeks. Joao Pedro, the £60 million price tag. And where does Murphy fit in the system next season? Now, that is a question that I don't think should be asked, and I've seen discussed over the socials. Was it a one-off season from Murphy? Can he take that form going into next season? I believe he personally can. But for whatever reason, people are questioning it on social media. Make sure you go down, drop a like on the video if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts on Newcastle's transfer plans. And if you haven't already, please go down and smash the life out of that subscribe button. We're closing in on 60,000 subscribers. We've just hit 56K, and your support is absolutely fantastic. Make sure you get over to the second channel and hit that subscribe button over there as well. That's closing in on 2,000 subscribers. Now, I want to talk about Newcastle United. Now, Lee Ryder, who is a Newcastle United, is a journalist who works for the Chronicle's chief, has said Brighton's Joao Pedro has a £60 million asking price, and Newcastle United have continued talks over a possible transfer. Now, he has been linked heavily with teams like Arsenal, Chelsea, Aston Villa have been also linked. I think he fits Newcastle the best, and I'll explain to you why. A number of things. One, versatility. I believe he can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play on the 10, he can play as a number 9. But the one thing that Newcastle do have, which very few teams do have in Europe, is a luxury number 9. Alexander Isak is a world-class striker who performed in some of the biggest games recently for Newcastle, scoring home and away in the semi-finals of the League Cup against Arsenal, getting them into the final, playing a big part of that final, delivering Newcastle their first piece of silverware in about 60 odd years or whatever it may be. But he seems to be a name that is attracting huge interest. I think he's a better fit than this player we're going to talk about here, Mohammed Kudus. Football Insider, who people don't think is a credible source, were the first ones to break the news about Ange Postecoglou getting the sack. And I do believe they need a little bit more credit than they actually are given. Now, I don't think Mohammed Kudus would be a good enough signing for Newcastle. I remain consistent. I don't think he'd be a good enough signing for Chelsea. And he's been linked to a number of football clubs. There's an unpredictability about him. There's no doubt he has ability, but his output is nowhere near as good as Joao Pedro. Now, Mohammed Kudus is linked valued at around £80 million, where Joao Pedro is valued at around £60 million. I personally think Joao Pedro, playing as a backup number 9, the fact that Callum Wilson has been let go, the fact that he's so versatile, he's what, 20, I want to say he's 25 years of age, 23 years of age, 16 GA in 27 games this season in a Brighton shirt. It is a very, very good return. And he did overall have 17 GA in 30, which is a very good return. Considering he hasn't played every minute of every game. They rotate. They've got other strikers. Danny Welbeck's been in good form. He's got 30 GA in 70 games, which is nearly 1 in 2 for a team like Brighton. I do think is a very good return. Now, another area they're looking at strengthening is the goalkeeper area. Now, they've of course got Nick Pope as a number 1, but that number 2, Dubravka, as recent years, fell out that number 1 position. Newcastle have opened talks for Burnley over the signing of James Trafford. Now, again, I think this is a little bit of a gamble, if I'm being brutally honest. Having the best defense in the Championship at Burnley is one thing, but playing in the Champions League against some of the best players in world football, the likes of PSGs, the Real Madrids, the Liverpools, the Cities, the Arsenals, the Inters, they need the absolute best players they can get. And I don't think he's anywhere near the level of Nick Pope. But however, he is a homegrown goalkeeper who does have some good traits. He's got very good kicking ability, but does have a bit of a bozo gene in him. I think at £30 million, it's probably the going rate for him. Potentially it may be a good bit of business for them. According to Globo Esporta, Newcastle Gallagher put Joao Pedro on his proposed transfer to Newcastle. I had negotiations with Newcastle in 2022. I was upset about not joining them from Watford. Now, I don't know how reliable that is, but, it looks like, he is their absolute main transfer target. Now, another area in which I do think Newcastle do need to strengthen is that centre-back area. Now, there's a number of players being linked. Kim Min-jae, who has been heavily linked in the last couple of weeks. But the one I think they need to sign, and I think would be the best potential centre-back that is homegrown, is on the club's radar, they've had talks with before, and that is Marc Guehi. Now, I honestly think Guehi is one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. I think he gets a lot of stick. You think back to the Euros he had with England, he was our best centre-back. I personally think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. We'll come back to Guehi in a second. The Newcastle other target was Kim Min-jae, but it looks like Al Nassr are pushing to sign him from Bayern Munich, and the defender is keen on the move. That's coming out from a very credible source in Santi. And Fabrizio Romano has also retweeted something with regards to Kim Min-jae to say, essentially, that he may be on his way to Saudi Arabia. He did retweet something that he posted a few days ago, suggesting that Saudi Arabia, the move may be closer than people anticipate. On the 23rd of April, he tweeted out this, and then he reposted it, which tells me there isn't any links to Newcastle in there. So it may be that Kim Min-jae is off their radar. But someone who is on their radar is Guehi. Now, Guehi does also have links to Arsenal. I think Arsenal don't really need him because they do have, they've got Saliba, Gabriel. They've got a number of centre backs that can play there, Ben White, etc. You've got Timber that can play there, but there are a number of credible journalists saying that Guehi is on Newcastle's radar. Now, I think that would be an unbelievable signing for them. I think one, he's homegrown. Two, they're rocking off for Champions League football. And three, would be a significant upgrade, in my opinion. I know Dan Burn's very good. I know Botman's good. Shaw's good. But Dan Burn and Shaw are both 33, and they are, you would think that in the next couple of years, they may start to slow down. Whereas Guehi's 24 years of age. You've also got Dan Botman, who's who could be his centre-back partnership. I know has had his injury problems in recent years, but he's only 25. And if you've got a 24 and a 25-year-old that can combine in a centre-back partnership with one of the best fullback pairings in the league in Lewis Hall and Livramento, with that central midfield partnership with Tonali, Bruno, they may want to bring in another midfielder because Jolinton does have injury concerns. With Alexander Isak, with Murphy, with Barnes, with Gordon, it gives you, a lot of quality in and around that team. And I think personally, Newcastle need to keep pushing and carry on to get this Champions League football, because after all, they have got the richest owners in the world, but they are unable to go out there due to FFP and go and spend the billions that they can. Now, I honestly believe that when you look at the potential that this Newcastle team have, I don't think they're a million miles away from challenging. I think they've got a very good squad that is very underrated, that has a lot of quality. It's got depth in both, with experience like players like Shaw, players like Burn. It's got the youth of Livramento, of Miley, of Hall, of Gordon. You've got a perfect balance there. You just need to sprinkle a little bit more fairy dust over the team. And I'm pretty sure Newcastle will have a good season. But if you can bring in Guehi, if you can bring in Joao Pedro, these are very experienced Premier League players. And I'm a big believer of signing from the Premier League at a point of strength is at the absolute best you can get, because it's the most competitive league out there. Let me know your thoughts. drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.